We are on part 5 of the planning process for a woodworking project. To review, we began with a basic picture of what we were wanting to build. That picture had a couple basic measurements. We used those measurements to help sketch a picture. We did this in AutoCAD. You could do this with graph paper. And we added some different dimensions to the different parts based off of that sketch. We then used that picture to generate a parts list of every part that we would need to build for this project. We correlated the measurements to those parts as well. And again, if you were doing this on graph paper, you could just have 1 square equal 1 inch to help get some of those measurements. We then used that checklist or this parts list to generate a cutting diagram. And the cutting diagram was for both the hardwood lumber as well as the plywood. And we just took our checklist and marked each one off as we drew the side on the little kind of theoretical boards. After that, we were able to use that information from the cutting diagram to do our material estimation, to determine how much material we actually need to buy from the lumber yard. And we found that there was a total of $210.44 of material. That is the material cost to build this project. The next step that we need to do is we need to create a timeline for completion of this project. And so I'm going to use Excel, and I'm going to have my parts list up. And again, this parts list is basically a checklist of what we are wanting to do. And I'll actually be kind of referencing this as well a little bit. And so the first thing we're going to do is we want to start by building the carcass of the project. So we're going to start with the sides. So left/right sides. So we need to think to ourselves, what are we going to do? Well, that is made of the veneer plywood. And so if we have a sheet of plywood, we want to begin by probably thinking about it and laying that out. So we're going to get lumber, or plywood in this case, and we're going to plan our cuts. Now, we have already previously planned the cut on the project planning guide, so we just need to reference that and make sure that the grain pattern is going the correct way, and so on and so forth. Once we have that planned out, we're going to cut to our width measurement. In this case, it is 14 1/4, and we will be doing that twice because we need 2 pieces. After that, we can cut to finished length, and this can be cut to our finished width. Because it is plywood, we can just go ahead and cut it to the size that we need, and our sides should be done. So this one would be done. So actually we'll put a mark on this side. So then, okay, let's maybe reference the picture here to see what we need to do next. That always tends to be helpful. We'll get rid of some of these extra dimensions that we don't need. And okay, so we have our 2 sides. So perhaps we want to add our face frame. Let's do our stiles, because we could attach the stiles to them, and those can just be glued straight on. So let's jump back here to our stiles. And so we want to get lumber and layout to know where this is coming out of. We'll first go to the miter saw and cut to an oversized length. We'll then want to go to the joiner, table saw, joiner, and that will allow us to cut it to our finished width. So I'm actually going to put that on here instead. Cut to our finished width. So then I'm at my oversized length, so I could actually go back then once those edges are cleaned up and cut it to my finished length. Now we're leaving it at an oversized thickness because we want to plane all of these face frame pieces at the same time, so they're all identical thickness. So we're going to move on to the top rail and bottom kick plate. And again, we're going to get lumber, go to an oversized length. We're going to leave it at an oversized length though, because again, we're going to size this down to exactly what we need later. And we'll cut it to the finished width. So we're leaving it at the oversized length. So then we have bottom kick plate rail, same type of deal, same process. All right, so we have all of these front pieces. We could actually plane all of those at this point, but I think we're going to go ahead, because these pieces are the same size and I want to work a little bit efficiently, I think we'll go ahead and do the bottom rear lateral support. And I should mark these off here. Top rail, bottom kick plate. And so we'll do the same there, and we'll do top, rear, lateral support, and same thing there. So then we have all these pieces, so we're going to plane the face frame. So let's do this. Sizing the face frame. Zoom in here a little bit. Sizing the face frame. And basically that's just going to consist of plane all face frame and lateral supports. And that's going to go to that 13/16, and then those pieces should all be done. Now I'm going to wait on the top until this kind of carcass assembly is done. We do need to think about how we're going to attach the top. So there's a number of ways that we can do that. An easy way would be to pocket hole up into the top. We could add cleat pieces, we could add gusset pieces. There's just you could dowel it in, there's all sorts of stuff. Because this is a simple, easy project, we're going to pocket hole that in place. So I think at this point we want to do some pocket hole cuts. And we need to think about how this is going to go together. So the sides will run some pocket holes on the inside, which will go into the top. So we're going to pocket hole right/left side to top. So we're just cutting them. Then that'll allow us to attach the left and right side. This front piece, we need to connect it into here, and there's nothing to connect it to on the back. Now we can glue the top on, but there's nothing to hold it in place in the meantime. So I think we'll go ahead and pocket hole this. So cut pocket hole in top rail. So that's going to cut that one, and then we might as well do the same thing in the bottom since it's all on the inside and it's hidden. Pocket holes don't look the greatest. They are quick and easy and relatively strong, and it is on the inside. So cut pocket hole in bottom kick plate rail. Okay, so this is able to be connected. The face frame we can just glue on. This is able to be connected. They're all planed to the same size. The back lateral supports, we're going to pocket hole those as well. So we'll cut both the bottom and the top. Okay, so I guess we got a lot of pocket holes on this. So with that done, I believe we can glue the stiles to the sides. So we're going to do first assembly. Glue stiles to sides. Okay. Then we're going to, let's see here. I think if we cut the rails to our finished size, which this becomes a problem because now that I'm thinking about it, we already cut the pocket holes, so we can't cut it to a finished size. So we need to move this, cutting it to a finished size, to before we cut the pocket holes in the top rail. So we cut the pocket holes in the sides. We cut our front rails to finished size. And this probably, we should add another one here. That is cut rear lateral supports to finished size. Then we can cut those pocket holes in all of those pieces. Now back to assembly, we can glue the stiles to the sides. We can install the front rails, both of those. We're installing them with pocket screws. Then we can install rear lateral supports with pocket screws. So we kind of have this box made at this point. And I think at that point, we could make the top. And so we are going to get lumber and lay out. We need to, because we have a gluing process, we will need to cut to oversized length on the miter saw. Then we need to clean up all edges to prep for glue. So joiner, table saw joiner, removing as little material as possible, making sure that we have enough pieces for when we glue up it is wider than the top. Clean up all edges to prep for glue. Then we're going to prep for glue, and this is like grain patterns, end grain, you know, up, down, up, down, up, down, like that. Glue the top. We'll let the top sit. Next day we're going to unclamp and scrape any residual glue. Then we need to go back to our squaring process. So we're going to joiner, table side joiner. So we're going to cut to finished width. Then we're going to square up one end and cut to finished length on the miter saw. Then we need to plane it to thickness. Okay. So that should be the top. We got it planed, so then we can attach the top to the base. All right. So we have everything made except there's no back on the project yet. And so we're going to wait on that because when we do the drawer slides, we want to be able to reach in from the rear of the project. So let's go ahead and do the drawers. So our drawers, we have the front, and let's jump back here, see where we're at. So we did the top. Haven't done the front, haven't done the back, and we got drawer size bottom. Okay, so we're looking pretty good. So after the top, so we're going to do drawers. So we're going to get lumber, or in this case, plywood, and lay that out. Cut to finished width. And if we take a look at our diagram here, that would be basically ripping this to the width, depending on how you lay it out. Cut to finished length. And so this would be the drawer front / back sides. So we're at the finished width, the finished length. Drawer left / right side. So we're doing the same procedure, just with the other components. We need to drawer bottom. We're going to, oops. We need to get lumber. So the bottom, we are getting lumber. We are ripping it to a finished width and a finished length. And now this is a little bit problematic because of the way that we have the lumber laid out. You would probably end up needing to cross cut this first, but for the purpose of a estimated timeline, this should be sufficient. So we have our drawer bottoms cut. The drawer assembly, we need to begin by cutting a dado in the drawer sides. Then we're going to dry fit assemble all drawers to make sure everything lines up good and adjusting where necessary. Then we're going to glue and brad nail all drawers together. All right, so our drawers are assembled. Let's take a look here. We got drawer, drawer, drawer bottom. Still got the back and the front. Okay, so we have kind of this empty carcass, and we have a bunch of drawers made. So at this point, we should be able to install the drawers into the project. And so to do this, we're going to install the drawer slides on the drawer. In the cabinet, we need to install a runner, which is basically, I talked about this kind of way back, where we need to basically have kind of like a 2x4 or some type of material on the inside to give us something to adhere the drawer slide to towards the back, because we do have this face frame kind of lip and we want this drawer slide to run perfectly back. And so we would need to basically make and install that runner. And essentially it's can just be a piece of 2x4 or scrap material of some sort just to build that out. So make and install the runner, then we can install drawer slides on the cabinet. Install drawers into cabinet and adjust if we need to adjust anything. So we have our empty cabinet, we have the drawers in the cabinet, the top is on it, we don't have a back yet, and we don't have the drawer fronts. So I'm going to wait on the back in case it benefits us to leave that off for assembly. And actually, now that I think of it, it would benefit us to leave the top off for assembly of this top drawer. So I'm going to come way back up here when we do the top, and I'm going to move this all the way down here. But we're not going to put that on quite yet. So the drawers are in, the top is no longer on it. We're doing that later. So we'll wait on the back as well. I think we go ahead and do the drawer fronts. And the drawer fronts, same type of thing, get lumber. We're going to be way up here. Now, just out of curiosity, the drawer fronts were 6.5. So if you're going to be doing a gluing process, that might be different. Let's assume that you can find some really awesome lumber that's never in a million years going to bow or twist on you. That's 6.5 inches. We're going to just pretend that for this kind of theoretical process. So we're going to get the lumber, go to an oversized length, finished width, finished length. And then we need to plane to finished thickness. And then, so we got all the drawer fronts, so we're going to attach drawer fronts to drawers. Okay, so that's all on there good. We should then be able to go ahead and do the top, and then we should be able to go ahead and do the back. So probably do a get lumber / layout, cut to finished width, cut to finished length, dry fit on project, glue and brad nail. And finalizing the project, we're basically going to sand, essentially. And then whatever little stuff, drawer pulls, that type of stuff. So I think that is essentially everything for the project. This then becomes our timeline, but we need to know how much time this is going to take. So we're going to put some different values with these. So getting lumber and laying stuff out. Let's say we're working kind of slow. That's going to take a half a day. And this would be half a day being like 30 minutes, let's say. Cutting to finished width. So you're going to go to the table saw, run it through the table saw. Well, we're going to give you half a day. It doesn't take that long, but we're going to say a half a day. Cutting to finished length, half a day. Let's say all these take a half a day. Let's say you are working extremely slow and you only want to do one thing per day. That's what we're going to do. So get lumber, oversized length, finished width. Get lumber, oversized length, finished width. Get lumber, same. Same. Okay, planing all of the pieces. So we have all 6 of these pieces. Let's say it takes 1 day. Cutting the pocket holes, let's say 1 day. Cut the front rails to a finished size. Should be able to do that in a half a day easily. Cut rear lateral supports to finished size, half a day. Probably it'd only take you 3 minutes, but we're going to say half a day. We're going to say you're working slow. Cut pocket holes in top rail. Let's go a half a day. Now we're just doing a bunch of pocket holes. Let's say a quarter of a day. Quarter of a day, quarter of a day. Glue stiles to the sides. We're going to say you only do 1 of those per day. So we're going to say that takes 2 days. Install the front rails. So we have cut them to the finished size, so we're just literally clamping them and screwing them in. Let's say a half a day for that, half a day for this. Get lumber and layout, so we're back to just stuff that probably takes you 3 minutes, but we're going to say half a day. Same with the drawer sides as well as the drawer bottom. The dado, let's say that's going to take 1 day. Dry fitting, let's say 1 day. Gluing them all together, 1 day. Installing the drawer slides on the drawer. Let's say you're working slow, it'll take you 2 days. Making the runner and installing that, 1 day. Installing the drawer slides on the cabinet, let's say we're going to go 3 days, because that's getting that good sometimes takes some time. Installing the drawers, so you're just putting the drawers in. Let's say you got to do some adjustments, half a day. Drawer fronts, get lumber, oversized length, oversized width, or finished width, finished length, planing. Let's say should only take half a day. Attaching the drawer fronts. Let's give you 2 days because you want to do a good job. Top, getting the lumber, oversized length, prepping the edges, prepping the grain pattern. Let's give you an entire day to glue. Unclamp and scrape, cutting to the finished width, squaring it up, planing it, attaching it. Let's say that takes a little bit longer, 1 day. The back of the project, get the lumber, cut to a finished width, cut to a finished length, dry fit on the project, glue and brad nail. Let's say that takes 1 day. And lastly, sand. Let's say you take 3 days to sand. Okay, so we're going to add all this up. We're going to see how long this project is going to take. So this project takes, based on what we estimated, 46, basically 47 days or 47 class periods to do this project. And that's if you are working very slow. For example, it doesn't take a half a day to grab a board and figure out where you're going to cut, given that we already figured that out with our lumber layout stuff. So this should be a very generous timeline for this type of project. 46 3/4 days to do this. This ends part 5, which is the timeline estimation for this project, for this kind of theoretical how to plan a woodworking project.